Welcome to a new video about Sisir. This video is going to be a little different than usual. Instead of showing a brand new feature, I will present to you the latest improvements I have added, mostly focused on enhancements and quality of life updates. First, let's talk about exchanging data between various DCC tools. One of the most common DCC people use is Blender. Blender uses meters as default units, so if you import a mesh from Blender, it will look very small in Sisir because Sisir uses centimeters as default unit. Let me import this head mesh that was exported in meters. Now, when load a mesh, Sisir will ask you to specify a measure unit. If you select centimeters, look what happens. The imported mesh is very, very small because in Blender, 1 unit equals 1 meter. So when imported in Sisir, 1 unit becomes 1 centimeter. Therefore, if you try to add guides, you can see that the scale of operation is way too big to be usable. You could try to scale down the guides, but the whole physics and settings are not designed to operate at this tiny scale. So let's import the mesh again. This time we are going to select meters, since that's the correct unit scale it was exported from. And now you can see that the mesh has been converted in the correct unit scale for Sisir. Now when I add the guides, the length is proportionate to the mesh. I can just modify them as usual, apply gravity with the G key. Everything works as intended. Now the same can be done when I want to export a scene from Sisir to a DCC. I click on File, Export Curves PLY. First I choose a location and a name. I'm going to call this guides_meters. And now for the unit, I will select, of course, meters. And I am also going to export it in centimeters for other DCCs like 3ds Max and Maya. Next, I press F2 to switch to the hair module, and I am going to export the hair to as Alembic file. Same as before, I want to export both centimeters and meters for both Blender, Maya, and 3ds Max. Although there is a problem with these last two, I will explain in a moment. Okay, I am now in Blender. I have already imported the mesh in meters, but just as demonstration, I also have imported the same head in centimeters. If I zoom out, you can see that the centimeters head is huge because it's the opposite conversion that I demonstrated earlier. So how do I import the PLY guides I exported from Sisir? If you open your Sisir folder, you'll see that there is a folder called scripts. Inside this folder, there are 3 subfolders, one for Maya, one for 3ds Max, and one for Blender. Inside the Blender folder, there is a zip file, and this is what we need to install the Sisir add-on for Blender. Click on Edit, Preferences, and from the add-on section, click on the little drop-down menu and select Install from Disk. Navigate to your Sisir folder, then Scripts, and then Blender. Select the zip file and click the Install from Disk button. There it is. You can see Sisir Importer. Now, all you have to do is to go to File, Import, and down at the bottom you should see Sisir Guides PLY. First, I'm going to import the one in meters. As you can see, the guides have been imported correctly. And they are separated for each layer like it was in Sisir. Next, I'm going to zoom out, and then I will import the same guides but the centimeters version. Once again, everything has been imported correctly. So really now it's up to you to decide which scale you want to use. You can keep the Blender default meters or just use the Sisir centimeters. It doesn't matter. You can do both. Next up, 3D Studio Max. Once again, I have imported both heads for demonstration purposes. 3ds Max uses centimeters as default unit, so the head exported in meters will be very small. So it's the same situation as within Sisir. To import the PLY guides, all you have to do is to go to Scripting, Run Script. Then again, navigate to the Script folder, and then the 3ds Max folder. Here you select PLY to 3ds Max script. You will be prompted to locate your PLY file. I'm going to first import the one in meters, and a message appears confirming that the import was successful. If I zoom in, I can see that the guides have been imported as editable splines, so I can later use them as guides for my hair modifier. And then I'm going to repeat the same import operation for the guides in centimeters. And once again, a message confirms that everything has been imported correctly. For Maya, I got the same setup. Once again, both heads have been imported. I already shown how to import guides in Maya in a previous video, so I won't go into too much details. Essentially, you open up the script editor and you drag the PLY to Maya script into the Python tab. Then press Ctrl A to select all and press play to execute it. Once again, I will import both versions, meters and centimeters. You can see the guides have been imported with the correct structure as the original layers in Sisir. And then I zoom out and repeat the same operation for the other version. Once again, everything has been imported correctly. Like 3ds Max, Maya uses centimeters as default, so this was just a demonstration for the different scale units. All right, now let's import the Alembic hair in Blender. Blender has native support for it, so to import the hair, it's as simple as selecting Import Alembic from the File menu. Then just select the hair ABC file and click Import. If I frame the camera, you can see the hair have been imported. Now I zoom out and import the file again, but this time the centimeters version. As expected, everything works fine thanks to Blender native Alembic hair support. However, both 3ds Max and Maya have a problem. Even though they both technically support Alembic, they do not support the specific Alembic hair format natively. If I try to import the hair using the native Alembic importer, look what happens. As you can see, 3ds Max imports the hair as a closed continuous spline, and to my knowledge, there isn't an easy way to fix this. In order to import the Alembic hair correctly, you need a plugin like Ornatrix for 3ds Max, which requires a paid license. The same applies to Maya. The native Maya Alembic importer doesn't support the Alembic hair format, so it will convert all the hair to Maya curves. I'm not even going to attempt it because it's extremely heavy and it might crash my system. Instead, since I do own a license for Ornatrix for Maya, I will show that with that it's possible to import the Alembic hair. However, it's the same as for 3ds Max, so Ornatrix requires a paid license. But as you can see, the hair are imported correctly. I just need to adjust a couple of visibility settings to view them at 100% density. So yeah, while Blender has native support for Alembic hair, 3ds Max and Maya require some external plugins. All right, let's go back to Sisir and talk about some of the other improvement I have done recently. The mirror mode have been enhanced. Previously, when creating curves in mirror mode, the mirroring function was only active at the time of the creation. Once the curves were deselected, the mirror got lost. Now with the new version, every curve that is created in mirror mode will always remember its mirrored twins, even if it's deselected. You can see I can reselect, for example, this guide here and the mirror activates. I can edit the guides normally and the mirroring function is retained. Also, let's say I turn off the mirror mode and edit a curve. If then I turn mirror on again and select the guide, the mirrored twin will snap into place as soon as I move a point on the curve. Another improvement of the mirror mode is that now you can specify the mirror axis. From this drop-down menu, I can select other axes, for example, X, Y, and you can also see up here it tells you what mirror coordinates are active. So now if I create a guide, the mirror plane is active on the XY axis. Obviously, the mesh on this axis is not symmetrical, so Sisir is trying its best to place the mirrored guide as close as possible to its counterpart. Sisir will also remember what axis was active for each mirrored guides. So now, even if I was using the XY axis, if I select this guide here, the coordinates go back to ZX because that's what this guide was using. Another feature that has been improved is the Draw Guides mode. In previous versions, I showed how you can load a reference mesh and you can draw guides on it. Now I have added this checkbox called Use Main Mesh as reference mesh. When this is checked and then click on Draw Guides, you can now draw directly on your main mesh. This is useful for things like eyebrows and maybe short hair or beard. Another feature that has been improved is the parting curve. To demonstrate this, I'm going to first draw a couple of parting curves here. Then I switch to the hair module and let me just tweak a couple of settings so we don't have too many hair. Okay, now I increase a little bit the parting amount. All right, something like this. So the parting is working as usual and it's separating the hair along the parting curves. Now let's scroll up to the clump modifier. In previous versions, when using the random clump distribution, in this case, I'm just going to set to something like 300. So as you can see, the clumps are generating on top of the parting curves. Essentially, they are ignoring the parting during the clump generation. So now I have added this new random experimental clump. It takes a little longer to cache, but you can see that the clump generation is now trying to maintain the parting along the curves during the clump generation step. Please keep in mind that this is not perfect. It can still sometimes generate clumps across the parting curve, so that's why I call it experimental. Lastly, let's talk about the new file format. In previous versions, the scene was saved as .json format, which is essentially just a text document. Now I have implemented a new scene file format that saves the scene as .sisir file. The advantage of this format is that it stores all the meshes and all the textures, including texture masks, inside the file itself, so you don't have to worry about remember to keep the OBJs and texture files because they are now all in one file. So when you save the scene now, by default, you see the new file format. Of course, you can still load the previous .json scene as well, but from now on, I recommend switching to the new file format. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to try Sisir yourself, simply join the Discord. The link is in the description below. You can download it for free and use it as much as you want, as long as it's not for commercial use. Keep in mind that Sisir is very much a work in progress, so expect bugs, crashes, and other issues. But you can help me improve the tool by giving feedback, and also feel free to suggest more features that you want to see implemented. So join the Discord and go download Sisir. I will see you there.